I'm Victoria.
And I'm Eve. Gracie.
And we became fast friends in the dance world. And then through some fun mischief, we ended up becoming sister-in-laws. And so now we are sisters who try to empower the world together. And then we created so many different avenues to do that. And this is one of our favorite ones right now. So welcome to the Women Empowered Weekly Live.
That's right. And really all we're trying to do is create these empowering conversations around some of life's greatest challenges and bring everyone along with us. We're all learning together. Today is one, specifically the conversation that we're going to be having today is one that it's a challenge that we constantly face. And so we wanted to bring everyone along for this important conversation when we're talking about imposter syndrome.
Oh, imposters.
Yes. So some people may not be familiar with this term, and that's totally okay. So what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evident success. Imposters suffer from chronic self-doubt and a sense of intellectual fraudulence that override any feelings of success or external proof of their competence.
It was so important that we read that exactly as it was.
Because it nails it.
On point.
It really nails it. And I guess my question for you, Vic, is have you ever had imposter syndrome?
Girl, yes. I've had it. Have you?
I have had it. Do you still have it sometimes?
I hate to admit it, but yeah. Yeah, sometimes do you?
100%. Still
we do. We feel imposter syndrome so much so that when we brought up this topic, I asked Eve, I said, Eve, because we still sometimes have the challenge of imposter syndrome, do we qualify to even talk on this topic?
So imposter syndrome tried telling us that we don't qualify to speak on this because we don't know enough or we are not experts. When really even having this conversation is us combating imposter syndrome, because we said, wait a minute, can we add value to this conversation? Yes. Do we bring an important voice to this conversation? Yes. Do we have experiences that are valuable? Yes. Great. Then we qualify to speak on this. So us having this conversation is us sticking it to imposter syndrome. All right. Here we go.
Yes. And it's something, again, that we've dealt with a lot of our lives, and we'll explain how maybe it could manifest, why it is what it is, how it's come to manifest in our lives. And we will, I promise, get to ways and tools that we can overcome all the challenges and difficulties that come with having imposter syndrome and the little inklings that may allow it to grow more.
Yeah. And here's the thing, with these conversations, if you are coming into this conversation recognizing yes, sometimes I feel like an imposter, or I have experienced imposter syndrome at some point or consistently do, you're not necessarily going to leave this conversation all of a sudden not feeling like an imposter, right? We're not going to free you of that necessarily. What we will do is discuss tools to overcome it and strategies to overcome it and why it's so important that we do overcome it. Yep. Because it is not helpful for our growth. And we will get into all of those reasons of why it's so important for us to overcome.
So this is not going to be a magic,
You're free of it.
Yes,
It's
it
gone.
won't.
Yeah.
But what we can offer you is that because we've battled it for a lot of our lives, we can offer you tools that help us face it, overcome it. And then when it faces again, to just keep going at it and not give up.
That's right. So I think a good place to start is why people even experience imposter syndrome. And the short answer is there's not one reason. There's not one reason that everyone falls into. There are some that we can trace it back to. And I think it's important to discuss those as we look into ourselves and try to discover, where is this coming from for me? And part of identifying where it comes from will help you when it's finally time to say, all right, I'm going to kick this thing. So I would say one of a standard reason is just a personality trait. There are some personality considerations when it comes to imposter syndrome. And oftentimes people who are more prone to anxiety will also be more prone to imposter syndrome. So it can be a personality thing that we were given through good old DNA and genetics, and we will have to combat it in other ways, right? So that is a possibility.
Yeah, and other contributing factors to our personality is our childhood experiences. All the ways that we were carved, nurtured, and ceramically honed into the human that we are today. Each of these experiences are contributing factors to whether or not we will feel moments or a perpetual essence of imposter syndrome. And these experiences, again, are gifts from our life and human experience, but we could also recognize how, oh, wow, that can contribute to this. How? And we'll get to how to deconstruct that later.
Right. And really, these childhood experiences are often this feeling of just never being good enough, right? Whether it was you were always compared to a brother or a sister or a sibling, or you always felt like you had to, you had to achieve in order to receive love, which is kind of goes into our next one, this idea that love is conditional based on your achievements. And I feel like you can go into this one.
Yeah,
because I know we've had a lot of conversations about this.
Yeah, so for many of us, as we're raised, we are young children, formidable, just willing to give love as babies. And then we go, okay, I want to give love. And then we naturally, innately want to receive that love. And when the baby starts to do things, or the little child starts to perform and act, we get a response from our parents. And then we start to go, oh, my mom likes that, so I'll do more of that to be more loved, because love is like, we're insatiable creatures for love. We can never get enough of that yummy, yummy feeling of love. So we start to equate love with self-worth. And that beautiful blend is a difficult enmeshment of addiction to the external validation and like conditional love of others. And that's where part of our identity of the imposter syndrome gets created, because we think that I have to do more or be more or achieve more to do that. And because we're insatiable beings who want more and more and more, when we don't get enough, we feel like we aren't at, let's say, the peak person that we want to be. And I used an example earlier with Eva, but like, if I want to be captain of the basketball team, and I will only be loved if I'm captain, and now I make it to captain, and now I still don't feel loved, it's not because you aren't actually a good captain. It's because our identification with what our good enough and our value system isn't always tied to the accolades that we get. Or you doubt, well, did I get to this leadership position like because of a different reason? Did I not really deserve it? Because if I really deserved it, I would feel different. So we start to understand that our feelings aren't always in alignment with what our accolades are actually showing, or what our worth really means. And then we'll have to differentiate feelings from facts in a little bit.
Yeah. So essentially, when we have equated achievements to self-worth, and self-worth ultimately being love, right?
Yeah.
So when we cleaned our room and your mother said, oh my gosh, good job. Or, if you do all of these things, if you get good grades, then you feel like you get more love from your family. So this equation of achievement equals love. And then or enoughness, or worth. Achievement equals worth. And then later we may get to a place where when we don't feel the worth, we just kind of keep trying to achieve, and then the correlation is not there anymore, and it's confusing. So that is another thing that can be something from childhood, or it can be something that is introduced into your life later, but is adopted as something that you believe.
It's kind of like, I call it the achievement drug. There is a certain high from achieving. You're like, oh, well, that was,
I'm on it.
That was a sense of good enoughness. Now I bring something to the world, or to my family, or to my friends. I'm the one that can offer this little offering. And then you have that drug of worth. Yes. But then we get addicted to that way of maintaining that worth rather than going deep into ourselves. And let me tell you, I'm talking to you about this, but I'm literally working on this as I preach about it. So I'm not sitting here telling you this is how it's done. I've mastered it. I am in a constant daily practice of recognizing that my self-worth does not come from the external things that I do for my children, for my family, for my business, for my friends, but from my intrinsic existence on this earth, and going, wow, I am worthy and loved and enough just by being alive. And that is part of the difficulty of this. And it couples into our next topic of belonging.
That's right. So another possibility as to where this stems from is perhaps a feeling of not belonging in your environment. And that can mean many things for many people. On kind of a surface level, it can mean you don't look like everybody else in an environment that you're in. And then naturally you equate that to, well, if I'm the outsider here, or if I'm different from everyone else, then there might be something wrong with me, or maybe I don't belong here, or maybe this is not my environment that I should be in. And I can speak to this, especially, and I know you can speak on this as well, where when I think about this, I mean, I went to USC for engineering, and I was in, math and science classes throughout all of high school. and college, and found myself to be one of very few women, and specifically Latina women, that it just did not, there were none other around. So naturally you start to recognize that other people look at you like, what are you doing here? And then you go, what am I doing here? Maybe I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And so, but what's interesting is getting comfortable in a situation where you look different from others. It sets you up, it kind of builds this resilience to then the next situation where you go in and you go, oh, I've been here before. I've been the only woman on the mat, right? When I first started jujitsu, and you might be the only woman training. Many of us have been in these situations where we go, we don't look like everybody else here, whatever that might mean.
Yeah.
And we, instead of equating that to our worth and our value, we just have to say, oh, that's interesting. You know, what are the other factors at play here that make that the case? And one of those is institutionalized discrimination. And that has to be considered when we think about our worth, and we talk about imposter syndrome. And when you go into a situation, especially when there are these sort of societal stereotypes around specific groups relating to competency. So, oh, women aren't as good as at math or science, or you know, people of color are not as smart, whatever that might be. You know, whatever messaging is being sent to you, then you can internalize and say, oh, maybe that is a reflection of me.
Yeah.
So even though everything else shows otherwise, and you go, wait a minute, no, look at everything about me shows that I am capable of this, that I have been successful at this, that I've gotten great grades, that I deserve to be here. We still can question those things when some of this, you know, this discrimination happens in a larger messaging system.
Yeah, and it's more than just how we look; it's how we speak. I recognized early on in high school, there were huge groups of kids who spoke their family's language and would come into a mixed setting and then feel awkward or different because they were the only one that had an accent, or that they spoke their native language with another friend in the class. So they felt compelled to kind of shrink together rather than rise and say, I speak multiple languages. I can communicate with a greater fraction of human beings on this earth. Boom. And that's the hard part about some of the messaging I was received as a child, was that the more languages you spoke, the more different that you existed. Speak English here. This is what we speak. I was like, no, my goodness, I speak 3 languages. And if I want to add a little bit of sign language, it's like 3 1/4. And I think that there's value there to look at people and say, what differentiates you? What makes you different? And your uniqueness that you bring to this table is actually a beautiful thing. But it can be such a oppressive feeling to say, but I'm the only one who speaks Spanish in this class, and I can't bond with anyone that way. And maybe my accent is throwing people off or makes people feel uncomfortable. But if we can find a way to like overcome that and surpass that, which again, we'll talk about in a bit, that is one of the differentiating factors that, again, does oppress people's feeling of enoughness.
And there are many other reasons of why somebody may adopt this imposter syndrome. What I want to talk about next is how it can actually manifest and what it actually looks like in practice and when it's a part of your life. And I first want to acknowledge that it is extremely common. So there have been studies that have said about 70% of people at some point have experienced imposter syndrome. So it's very common. And it is also shown that women are more likely to experience imposter syndrome than men. And that is kind of through studies that they have done, psychological studies.
Maybe that's because we're expected to do a whole lot more than the average person.
Oh, yeah. I think, well, this goes back to, again, a lot of childhood things, a lot of societal pressures, a lot of ideologies there. So all of that goes into potentially why, women may be more prone to imposter syndrome than men. Not that men don't get it, not that they don't experience it, but women will be more prone or more likely to have it.
Yeah. And one of the ways that I know it manifested for me from a very young age is perfectionism. I could never be perfect enough. And I thought that if I could just attain that level of perfection, I would be the perfect child, the perfect partner, the perfect friend, the perfect colleague, the perfect career woman at any given time. And that unattainable want for perfection was a trap for me. And it was the true manifestation for me of imposter syndrome. And again, I sometimes deal with it even still, like, okay, we're going to make sure our hair is done. And from a performance background that we go on stage regularly, we know what it's like to sit on a space and have people tear you down. Like, oh, but look at her hair, but look at her outfit, but look at her makeup, but look at her this. And we'll talk about how not to do that in our Society of Women on another future video, but just to understand the manifestation of feeling like you must be perfect in all realms and that you can't be flawed for any reason is a huge manifestation of imposter syndrome.
And kind of going off of that, imagine if you felt like you needed to be perfect before advancing. So your likelihood to lean into challenges is going to be much less.
Yeah.
And what this looks like is if there is a job position and you go, wow, I think I could be really great at that job. However, look at these qualifications that they have. I may not have all of those qualifications.
Only 99.9% of them.
And instead of recognizing, I may not have these qualifications, but I'm certainly smart enough to learn these and to take on this position. All we will see is I am not enough, or I did not get that. And then you will remove yourself from applying. And then what ends up happening is these people who are actually overconfident and underqualified apply for these positions. And those are the ones who end up getting the job. So when we look at ourselves and our ability to lean into challenges and go, whew, this is scary, because I'm afraid that by being denied this position or taking on this position and I don't do well enough, that this is then an indicator of my worth. And that is a scary thing. So how it manifests for many of us is this inability to lean in to scary things that we need to do. And I will speak personally about when I embarked on teaching women empowered and teaching self-defense. When I started teaching this, actually, let's go back. The very first Women Empowered DVD, Women Empowered didn't exist in a everyday class or every week class sense. So I had learned the techniques. I had never taught them before, and I had to teach them on DVD to a bunch of people. I also had food poisoning that day. It was rough.
Secret.
This is why we redid Women Empowered 10 years later. I was like, can we please? Thank you. But had I told myself, no, I don't qualify. I don't qualify to do this. What makes me qualify for this? And trust me, I had those thoughts. And lucky for me, I also had a partner that was encouraging and said, hello, you bring all the value that you need to the table, right? And this happened not only with that, but just continuing to teach. And all of these moments where I remember teaching my first law enforcement course where I had to go in and basically teach law enforcement how to de-escalate a situation and learn some jujitsu tactics. And I went, who am I to do this? And then I realized when I'm there, oh, I bring something valuable to the table. I can teach this. And
you did have the knowledge.
And I did. So it was a complete, it was just this messaging that kept coming up. And it was not an accurate representation of reality. And luckily, I had somebody to reflect that back to me.
Yeah, the persistent support of people around you to go, hey, I see this in you. Why can't you see this in you? Is a beautiful tool to overcome this. But I can also relate to the idea of these, again, manifestations in something we call soloists. So imposter syndrome also manifests in this idea of soloists, which is, and I exemplify it beautifully, the feeling of wanting to do everything alone to prove that you are good enough, you have this down, you don't ask for help. That's one of the big things about soloists. I don't need help for this because I can do this. And I have been, epitomizing that even in my own motherhood. I resisted having even nannies or family members help me because I want to do it a certain way and I can do it this way and I can do it. And there is no award for soloists. And in fact, if anything, it's self-destruction. Soloism, if that's even a way to term it, is a self-destructive way to put everything on you in an attempt to prove your worth and your ability to not be this imposter. That is the most self-destructive way that you will implode because you're not utilizing your resources, asking for help, and saying, hey, I don't need to do this alone. I can be successful, not an imposter, and have assistance and help and insight and other people's experiences to help mold my climb to whatever I deem as successful or the top.
I love that. I mean, I don't love it, but I love it how you explained it.
Yeah.
And another way that it can manifest is how we look at mistakes that we make and how we progress from those. So somebody who's experiencing imposter syndrome, when they make a mistake, what they say to themselves might be, see, I knew I couldn't do it.
I was right.
I was right. I'm not good enough for this. And this is a reflection of my worth. This is a reflection of how smart I am. And I failed and I should just give up, right? Instead of recognizing that everybody makes mistakes, and we're going to get into that later about how we need to embrace them actually, but recognizing like, oh, this was a part of my learning process. Where can I go from here? But when we identify our mistakes with a reflection of our worth or our capabilities, that is an inaccurate reflection and equation there to make. So that is another problem and an issue with imposter syndrome and why we need to work on getting rid of it and letting go of it.
Yeah, and when she says getting rid of it, she knows, and we're saying that doesn't mean that, again, imposter syndrome will completely disappear from our entire mental paradigm. It's the understanding that when it comes up, we have tools, we have knee-jerk reactions on how to squash, silence, mute, neutralize.
And identify, right? Identify that, oh, I see what's happening here. And I've felt this before. And then we can go to these tools that we're going to discuss in a bit. But I also wanted to say that when we talk about imposter syndrome, I think that there's this, it's important to differentiate beneficial qualities that some of us may have that actually will make incredible leaders or leadership, and imposter syndrome. Yeah. So I want to talk about those qualities right now and identify the differences because it's an important one. So there are qualities that we would say make really impactful and great leaders.
Yep.
And to me, personally, those qualities, and I assume will agree with me on this because we wrote this together. But one of those is humility, right? So humility, the ability to listen, the ability to listen to others and say, you know what, I may not know it all. I am willing to learn from others and recognize that I might be open to new ideas and that I can learn and grow from that.
And that I have different life experiences, so that humility is even more important because yes, what I feel is factual based on my life experiences, but what you experience might bring a different insight, and I don't have to agree with it, but I can open space for the fact that my truth can still coexist with your truth.
Right.
It's
huge. And also the ability to recognize when you're wrong and say, oh, I made a mistake. Well, I'm glad you brought that to light. Or, to recognize when we do make mistakes and acknowledge that. That is a great quality to be able to have, to recognize when that has, or to say, I don't have all the answers. Somebody may know, there may be a better person to ask for this specific question on this topic instead of just like coming up with whatever and pretending like, you know everything. And just this idea of being open to input, right? So these are great leadership qualities to have. And this is not what we're talking about letting go.
No.
Right? You can have those qualities. What we're talking about specifically is the inability to acknowledge or internalize your own success.
Okay, say that one more time.
Right? So your inability to acknowledge or internalize your own success.
That means you did something right. You were competent. You created or achieved an accolade. You woke up that morning and you can't see that is a point of success. That means that you can't even internalize the abilities that you have either on a regular basis or that you accomplish something as something valuable.
And what that again looks like is, instead of saying, well, I can still have these, I can still be humble in the circumstances where it's needed. I can recognize that there's great input out there. I can recognize when I'm wrong. But then you can also say, oh, but I know my stuff here and I'm going to speak.
Yeah.
And my voice is valuable on this opinion. And it may not be right, but I'm going to speak my truth, or I'm going to speak my voice. And so that is where you can still hold those qualities that we feel like make great leaders, but let go of the imposter syndrome stuff, because you can recognize where you are competent, where you succeed, where you have value, where your voice has value. And as long as you can keep those, that is the combination that makes great leadership and great collaboration with others. So we're not saying to let go of those qualities that you might feel like have benefited you. What we're saying is you can have that, but we need to keep the confidence high. We need to recognize that we have earned our spot at the table.
And that's an important distinction when it comes to group thinking. People who actively engage with others and sometimes bounce their worth off of a group thinking of any way, it's the ability to say, I don't know about that aspect, but here's what I do know. Tell me what you know about that aspect, and let's see if we can blend both of our knowledge and experiences to cumulatively come to a greater decision for others. And you can see that a lot in what's happening, whether it's globally or even nationally in our government and our leadership. One of the ways that we could really benefit is everyone coming with their expertise and where they're confident in and saying, hey, listen, I don't have all the answers for everything, but this pillar here, I am on point with. Can we combine my pillar with your pillar and his pillar so that we can make a decision that best benefits the group as a whole and allows us all to proceed forward with confidence? And this is, again, the imposter syndrome might make you shrink your particular pillar because you don't feel confident enough in those other two. And we're asking you that know your pillars, know your stinking pillars, so that when you come at it and someone breeds the doubt or feeds the doubt that is within you, you can say, yep, I don't know that. I'm not going to pretend to know that, but I do know this. Let's work together. Squash it and neutralize it by combining the top goodness versus separation and go, well, he knows so much about that. He must know so much about what I think I know, or she, or whatever, gender situation you want to go into. That is a really important distinction to allow for all people to bring their most confident and high level qualities to the table.
Just wanted to snap on that. So let's talk about it. How can we overcome this? Now that we've recognized why we might have it, where it comes from, why we need to shed it when it's hindering us from our progress, how can we overcome it? And I think the number one thing that we need to figure out how to do is, how do we separate feelings from facts?
Woo! Hold on, because this is everybody's reality. Everybody has an emotional response to everything that happens in their life. So really let that resonate for a minute. Feelings versus facts. It's going to be a very hard thing. And I'll tell you, when it comes to all the political stuff happening, that is a beautiful gift to our world and our consciousness of expansion and any wokeness you're feeling right now. Feelings versus facts is where we would love you to lean back into. Not just now. We talked about it in managing anxiety. We talk about it in our previous, what is the other video that we did on? We've done so many. Check out our YouTube page. We talk about feelings versus facts a lot. So this is something that keep in that left pocket right here. But the first thing to do is we talk about it. We're talking about it publicly. Are you willing to talk about it with people around you? Are you willing to take what comes up for you in imposter syndrome and say, hey, I'm feeling a little bit out of my element here. Can you help talk to me about what's happening here? More likely than not, they'll look at you and be like, are you kidding me? You're killing it here. Or are you kidding me? Like you're finding your groove. You're on your path. You don't have to be at the optimal level to be able to still have this experience of growing within any realm that you're dealing with, whether that's relationships. You might feel like an imposter in your own relationship. I don't deserve to be a girlfriend. I don't deserve to have this experience with another human life form. This is pervasive. So you talk about it. Hey, I don't know why I'm feeling like I don't deserve your love. And if you're willing to talk about that with someone, they can be like, are you kidding? That's so wild. I love you even though you don't think you're deserving. And talking about it is the first way to start to overcome this.
That's a great point. And this is when I explained about, with my experience with jiu-jitsu and with teaching women empowered, how henna was a really important role in that. And so recognizing that having support around you can literally be the point of, do I go down this imposter path? Or do I give someone that just gives a little bit of reflection and holds up a mirror, and then you go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I need to separate this and I need to put all this stuff on the table and really take a look. And then I go, wait a minute. No, actually, I have everything I need to take this on. But sometimes we need that support from others, and we need people who know us very well to reflect that back on us. And, not just people who toot our horn all the time, but people who really know you and go, can I just list all of your accolades really quick? Do you need me to hold up your resumes for you to look at this? But we need that support from others, and talking about it with other people will help you just kind of hone in. And if you don't have, this can also go the other way, right? So make sure that when talking about this, you're talking about it with people who are in support of your growth and your journey. Because there are other people who actually, if they have imposter syndrome too, and they are always afraid of not being good enough or not being like always leaning towards fear, then this might not be the right person to talk to about it, because they might go, oh my gosh, what if you did that and you failed? And then you're like, I don't need that conversation right now.
So it's finding the right external reinforcement of a reality that is yours. And this comes back to now you. If we don't have the external reinforcement, we have ourselves. And part of that is deconstructing the origin in which our self-doubt permeates. So what does that look like? It's when a doubt comes up and we start to just have to differentiate feelings from facts for a moment. And we go, why am I doubting my ability to teach this subject? Is it because I didn't put in the hours? Nope, I put in the hours. Okay, is it because I feel like there are tons of other professionals who do this better than me? Oof. Who am I to judge whether they're doing it better or not? Okay, stepping back again, why am I doubting my ability to teach this? Oh, is it because I don't feel enough? That's a feeling, that's not a fact. Okay, so then we have to go, why don't I feel enough? Oh, is it because I didn't put in the hours? No, I put in the hours, okay, fact. So it's a constant refining process of the questioning of what you have to ask yourself. What have I done? How have I done it? Where is this coming from? Are these feelings coming from inside, or are they reflected from the outside? Are people telling me you have no basis to talk about this? And even if other people are telling me, are they informed? So it's an interesting process to deconstruct the origin in which your self-doubt is coming from, but it is really beneficial for overcoming imposter syndrome.
And part of that deconstruction is looking at your childhood, right? And then recognizing, wow, this is a theme that keeps coming up for me. Where does this come from? And when you can make these correlations, and you may have never thought about this, but you went, oh my gosh, the only time I felt like I got love from my mom or from whoever was when I brought home all A's as a report card, or was when I was like being good and I saw them being, not treating my brother fairly who didn't do as well, or whatever that might be. So if you're recognizing things in your life that are contributing to it, that is a really important part of deconstructing it. And then saying, oh, that's that thing again that's coming up from back there. That is a feeling. That is not a fact, a current fact.
And then when we understand the facts versus feelings, we could also move into, oh, is this feeling coming from my persistent comparison of others? And it is so normal for the human experience from a young age, from middle, wherever you are in your life point here, to understand that we compare for beautiful reasons, to learn from others, to better ourselves, to see where we stand. But when your self-worth is being compromised, challenged, or allowing self-doubt to overtake your confidence, we have to really take a deeper look at why we are comparing to the deep level that we are. And a lot of this can happen amongst colleagues when you say, why did that person get the promotion and I didn't? And we sometimes tend to compare apples to oranges. Well, it's because of their gender. It's because how long, I talk to the boss versus they talk to the boss. And sometimes we aren't really like stripping through and going, okay, what are the real facts here? Oh my goodness, they've been here X amount of years longer than me. Or if they haven't been here longer than me, they actually have X amount of experience beyond my experience. So neutralizing some of these comparisons and even asking yourself, does the company want what I have to offer? That doesn't mean that what I offer is even not good. It's just not what the company happens to need. So a lot of the imposter syndrome can be built because we're comparing unfair circumstances and not looking at all of the things that make decisions happen.
And when we look at comparisons, what do we often do? And we've all done this on social media. You're comparing your weaknesses to their strengths. And that is not a fair comparison.
Not at all.
So when we are comparing ourselves to others, what we're asking you to do is try to focus on fair comparisons, which really there aren't really any, because here's the truth. Everybody has different experiences and different life experiences. So if you say, well, maybe I'm not worthy to be here because so-and-so is so much better and they give so much better presentations. And then you recognize, oh, they've been doing this for 10 years and I've been doing it for 2. So that makes sense. And guess what? When I'm 10 years deep, I'm going to be, killing my presentations just like she is. And I think we just need to have some context to our comparisons instead of allowing it to continue this messaging of us, reflecting on our competence when really it's just not accurate and it's not fair to ourselves.
Yeah, if you are watching in any of our platforms here, I would love for you to comment in on what ways that you compare yourself to others that could hinder you from overcoming imposter syndrome. I'd love to read it right now. I'd love to know what ways that you impair yourself. So please leave us some of those comments right now. We'd love to reflect on it in a minute. And as you do that, I would actually like to talk about even the next step once we compare, dealing with the recoverable mistakes. Here is something that I know that I have a heavy feeling about. You guys, when I mess up, it's like the end of the world. Like when I mess up with my husband, I'm like, it makes sense. You should just divorce me. This is the end. I get it. I don't blame you. I spilled the rice. Done. Divorce. Even in business, I'm like, oh my gosh, I messed up on that women empowered instruction. Like I shouldn't teach classes anymore. It should just end now. There is something in all of us that doesn't feel like we have a recoverable ability when we make mistakes. Maybe that was your upbringing. Maybe it's the way your parents replied to any of the mistakes that you did. Maybe it's the group of friends who, instead of jokingly like lifting you up after you fell, they're like, dang, clumsy, what's happening? And they like really beat you down. So this comes from a huge culture of understanding what happens when I fail. What happens when I make a mistake? Are people around me? Is my inner thoughts, this is recoverable. I am still worthy. I am still good. It's not my identity when I fall. I want you to really understand that.
And that's part of separating, right? Separating facts from feelings. Like I'm feeling all of these things, but what was the actual truth? Oh, I spilled the rice. Oh, I did that thing. That's the fact. This was the mistake that was made.
Yep.
And so sometimes we look at that mistake, which is the fact, and we put all this other stuff on top of it. And that's when you got to go, wait a minute, that was a mistake. Okay, now, and we'll talk about in a moment how to grow from that and how to use this as to continue to push ourselves forward.
Yeah, and mistakes are so like gross and like insidious that you may even wrap your identity around one mistake in your entire life. And you might become that person which spilled, like I talked about it with my daughter. She spilled something at dinner. And then she's like, oh my gosh, we cleaned it up. She spilled it again. And then she said, Mom, I'm so clumsy. 2 spills and her identity became, I'm so clumsy. And I literally stopped. I put everything down. I said, stop. Are you clumsy? She said, first of all, no. I said, no, you're not. You had 2 mistakes. You spilled water twice. And you guys, we do this in every aspect. You have to fail. When you look at a child who is still learning to walk, to grow, to talk, to say things, they have to fail 50,000 times before they feel what feels good for them or what societally deems acceptable or what your business might want you. You might fail at your job 50 times, even though you were a great candidate for it. You might have been the best candidate for it, but how they want it to be done might be a specific way, and they might have to train you or ask you to do it again and do it again. So the less you could take it personal and allow it to become your full identity, the more you'll thrive beyond imposter syndrome.
That just made me think about when we're kids and we are kind of labeled, like you said, based on those actions or our failures, and how then we carry those labels throughout our life. And so for me, I know that I was extremely shy as a child. Now, I actually don't know if my parents ever said, you're shy or whatever, but I'm sure teachers, I'm sure other people may have done that. But when we, when you have a child that is basically not necessarily an extrovert, not somebody who's out there speaking to everybody, every stranger, then you might be saying, oh, she's shy, right? So now there's that label is being put on you. And then we carry that label often throughout the rest of our lives.
Yes.
And so we think about what labels have been put on us that we haven't yet relieved ourselves of. And so for me, recognizing that going from somebody who was shy and who had a hard time talking to anybody and like, kindergarten and like not, making friends, to going to somebody who had to perform in front of 70,000 people in an arena, that was a huge shift. But I had to recognize, all right, am I going to continue that to be my identity and that I just am shy and that I can't be around other people or I can't find a different side of me that I can bring out? And so part of that is identifying what those are. Again, is that a fact? Am I shy? Is that a fact? Or is that an identity, a label that's been given to me? Or do I sometimes have moments where I don't want to talk to people? That might be a fact, but that's not a label that I can then just say, oh, in general, I hate people and I don't like talking to anybody, right? So we can separate moments from identity. And I think that's an important part of this, separating feelings from facts. And we're going to give you guys kind of some questions to ask yourself after this. So a little breakdown of things that you can write, things that you can journal, questions to actually ask. And the last one of these is write down your strengths. Write down your strengths. So sometimes we need to remind ourselves of all the amazingness that we are, all the things that we bring to the table, all the things that we've accomplished. So if you have not done that in a while, that is a part of separating feelings from facts, is let's focus on the facts of what we have actually done and what we bring to the table. So that is another kind of journal prompt or a task that we are going to ask you to do, whether you do it here and you want to write in the comments or whether you scribble it down on a piece of paper. But that is so important to focus on those and to remind yourself of those when you're somebody who's prone to focusing on your failures.
Yeah. I think that when you identify the strengths, you could also help people around you remind you of the strengths. Because sometimes when I look at her and she's like, oh, I'm not good sometimes in that social situation, I'm like, what are you talking about? Have you met Eve Torres on top of WWE? And she's like, yes, but that's a persona. And yes, guess what?
I have Victoria make friends for me.
And it works.
Yeah.
But I like
go make friends for us. And then bring them back and then I'll talk to them.
But you guys have to understand, when Eve went onto this stage and became Eve Torres on the wrestling stage, people think, oh, but that's not really me. That's an imposter of me. You guys, every side of you is you. And that is part of another way to overcome imposter syndrome. Sometimes you might think, oh, well, I can do that because that's who that is. Guess what? You are a blend of all the different facets of the beautiful diamond that you are. It's just a different side of your stone. You might not feel as comfortable there. You might not want to exist there as often, but it exists. So when Eve was like, man, I was shy, and then I had to become this person on stage, and she did become. So then one could argue, well, I don't know if I'm good enough to be on that stage because I just go up there, I play, and then I come back to my comfort. That is part of who she is. And the more that she can blend her existence, the more she goes, wait, I'm not an imposter. I actually just owned it up there. That's crazy. That is me. I am that. The same goes if you're doing at work, when you have any kind of speaking engagement. If you're scared to speak at a colleague luncheon or a brunch or a meeting, and you sit there like, it's not really me to do that. Do it. See how it feels. And then you're like, yeah, oof, I feel like I'm not capable or enough. Well, you did it. So now how can we add that to the internalization of, I am not an imposter in that realm because I just did it. All it takes is the action sometimes to remind yourself that you are in fact capable to do that which you are scared to do.
You're capable.
Yeah,
capable. I'm going to say this again. So we talked about separating feelings from fact, but there's one other separation to consider. Kind of falls along the same lines. Separating fraudulence from a feeling of not fitting in. So whenever we are starting to feel fraudulent, you need to ask yourself, am I actually fraudulent? Do I not deserve to be here? Did I not meet all the qualifications? Or do I just feel like I'm not really fitting in with everyone else around me? And that is an important distinction to make, because again, the moment we start to identify that, oh, when I don't fit in, I guess I shouldn't be here, that is a challenge that we need to overcome. Otherwise, marginalized communities will continue to be marginalized, because if from, whatever standpoint you bring, and you go, actually, I bring a unique voice here because I have unique experiences, because I don't look like everybody here. That is value. I am bringing value to the table. So recognizing when your feeling of fraudulence is actually just you feeling like maybe I don't fit in here. And
not fitting in is okay. In fact, stand out. Be the only female in the engineering classes I was the only female in my coding classes, C++. I was like, I'll program a different code than all of you. Stand out instead of feeling like you always have to fit in. Now, I know it feels like scary. Honestly, it can be frightening, and it can be a contributing factor to imposter syndrome. But instead of trying to fit in, try to stand out and recognize that standing out doesn't mean you're a fraud. It just means you have a different perspective, a different experience to bring, a different idea that can really shift, again, things that need the minority of females, the minority of, I'm half Asian, or whatever community that you happen to represent. Speak out so that you can stand out and not feel like you're a fraud, because you're not.
You're not.
Just by existing, you're not a fraud.
And the next tool that we're going to talk about, we can't emphasize enough, but it is, we talked about failure already, but we're going to keep talking about it because it's so important. Okay, so functionalizing failure. Functionalizing failure. And what that means is Failure is a tool to launch you forward. And if we can start to shift our perspective on failure being something that identifies our faults or is a label that we have to now identify with or is unrecoverable, if we continue to subscribe to that script, we'll say, then we will never fail forward. We will never use our failures to to functionalize them and say, what can I take from this? And here's a little hint, okay? Here's a little pro tip. Every single expert in the world, every single person who you idolize and look up to in whatever industry or whatever skill set they might have has failed thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And so if you recognize part of getting to where you want to be is failing, you go, oh, all right, one down, however many thousand to go. And if you can shift that rather than, oh, this is a reflection of me, to no, this is a reflection of the process. We are all a part of this process of getting to where we want to be, and failure is a part of that. And if we are not recognizing that, then we are going to stop the moment we hit that first failure and back up, and then we will never push forward through it. Failure, it's so good.
Functionalize your failures.
And I don't know if everyone follows Sarah Blakely, but she is, first of all, just amazing. Listen to her talks. She is the founder of Spanx, also another reason why I love her. But
we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Spanx. So she talks about, there's a YouTube out there video, I'm sure, that you could find, but she talks about how her dad, when she would come home every day, the topic of conversation at the table was, what did you fail at today?
Imagine if you asked yourself
what did you fail at today? How important that is, and how it just normalized failure. And it's basically, if you're not failing, you're not moving forward. And think about that, like how to shift your conversation around failure instead of hiding them, instead of, like trying to be ashamed of them. And you can go, oh, girl, guess what I did today? Man, I messed that one up big time. And here's why I'm not going to do it again. So if you can be open about your failures and embrace them and then use them as a catalyst to continue forward and towards success and towards the success that you want.
Can I give us a little vulnerable share here? He's gonna be like,
oh God.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I happen to like video games. I have a Nintendo Switch and I play video games a lot. And I do this with one of my friends. And one of the things I realized and learned from video games is that you fail at least 1,000 times sometimes before you can even get past the first level. So yes, my inner gamer, because we are both computer lovers, it's just electronics as well, but my gaming side has found so much learning curve in the idea that video games are like puzzles, and puzzles need to be figured out. And if you figured out every puzzle on the first try, life would become really boring, but guess what? So would games. And I would love for you to shift your mindset about life for a moment as if it being the most fun game you've ever played. And if you figured out everything on the first try in your game, you wouldn't enjoy life. So this vulnerable share that I enjoy gaming because it also taught me.
I don't know why that's vulnerable. I thought you were going to talk about a bathroom mishap or something. She's like, I'm a gamer. I'm like, so? I
know, but it's part of me that I haven't shared that often.
Okay,
so
it's true. That is true.
It feels new. Welcome.
Victoria likes video games. It's out there.
If you got any good Switch games, Nintendo Switch, let me know.
Send it to her.
But understanding that life is a game. It must be played. It must be played and failed and failed and failed again. And I think someone in the comments, Stephanie, wrote that she's like, if I don't get things done and perfectly the first time, I tend to give up on it. We can relate. Literally, the first time I tried jujitsu, I'm like, I'm not a black belt. Let's get out of here. I'm done. But then I was like, that's a joke. Come on. It's part of the learning process. Part of the fun is the acquisition of the information. And that is also one of the huge contributing factors to battling imposter syndrome, acquiring the knowledge, the skills, feeling capable, understanding that you can overcome these challenges and know it. Holy moly, beating imposter syndrome can help by failing so many times. This is so confusing for some because they go, but wait, when I fail, I feel like an imposter.
I'm not loved.
I'm not loved.
Right?
Oh,
I'm not loved. I'm not worthy. And I just got a jujitsu plug right now because this is actually a beautiful part about jujitsu, I think, for anyone out there who trains. But if you want to practice failing, start learning jujitsu, right?
Yeah.
If you don't feel like you have enough failures in your life and you go, gosh, what is the last thing I failed at? Well, I don't know. I'm kind of nailing everything right now. Chances are you're not taking risks and you're not leaning into challenges and you're not figuring out, okay, what's the next thing I can do that's kind of scary or vulnerable? And if you need practice in that resilience, if you need practice in these failures, jujitsu is it, right? Because
Hito just wrote, I failed at the trap and roll a few hundred times.
A few hundred thousands. I would, well, maybe not.
Maybe not you.
Maybe not Hito. But for sure. So with, the practice of jujitsu, ultimately you are going to consistently lose or fail. And then you go, oh, wait, I'm still here. I'm still good. I think I'm even a little better than I was last time. And then you recognize, you make this correlation between, failing, it's got to happen. Otherwise, I'm just not going to get better. And so if you're lacking that, that need to fail, or that ability to fail on a daily basis, jujitsu is the way. Let me
just throw yourself in and fail. And if not, we have another tool for you. And it is a very, I want to call it the easiest, hardest thing you've ever done. Here's what it is. We need you to rewrite your script. What does that mean? It means changing the mental narrative that happens in your mind on a moment-to-moment basis. I have compulsive negative thoughts. Sometimes they're called ants, automatic negative thoughts. And sometimes those infiltrated thoughts will have you doubt, fear, scared, pull back, hesitate. And all those thoughts that come in first are part of a pattern or a script or a compulsive behavior that is either nurtured or genetic. Regardless of where they come from, you have the power right now to go, this is what I'm thinking. Let me change that thought. Now, let me be very clear. I'm offering you this information, but I struggle with it more than I can tell you. Okay. So when the automatic negative thought comes in, when the power and the script of, I'm not good enough, let's say, to teach this class today. Let's say 15 new people came in today, and I'm used to giving a new student, maybe 1 to 5 new students, their intro. But if 15 new students walked in and I was teaching alone and I had to give 15 new people an intro, let me tell you, the automatic negative thoughts would be on overload and overdrive. And I would have to rewrite in the spot the script that I am good enough, that I can do this, and I'm not an imposter because I'm not this black belt who can dish out all the information the way that it is. I know what I'm teaching. I know it well. I know how to teach, and I can deliver this. And that's what I have to rewrite in my mind on the spot.
And that you know more than all of them, right? That you are a black belt in what you can offer, right? In that, that information compared to what they know. So you have something to offer them. Now, it reminds me of that time that you were teaching. She went and taught this entire legal firm, right? Or a legal group of all these women. Yeah. And she's like, there's all these attorneys and they're all going to be, like these top top people in their firms. And I'm like, I was like, they're attorneys. I'm like, you're not trying to go there and teach them law. Like, you are going to teach them self-defense. Guess what? None of them know anything about self-defense. You bring incredible value there. They're all going to sit there and give me more information because you've got it to dish out. And she's like, oh yeah, good point.
And that's
sometimes that's and the comparisons, right? You're like, but they're attorneys. They've gone to school for 10 years. You're like, great. Have they been trained jiu-jitsu for 10 years? Nope. So there's my value, right? So making understanding that. So here's the thing with the script. You might have to come up with your own script for your own situation, but we are going to practice right now a few lines that we can say, and we are going to have them in the comments later about actual things that even if you don't feel them, we need to say to ourselves to help rewrite the script, right? One of them is that I can and should ask for help. I can and should ask for help. That does not mean you are not capable, that you are not smart. Matter of fact, some of the smartest people out there know, hey, I'm just going to go to the smartest person and ask them, and then I get the answer, right? So I can and should ask for help. That is one.
Now try this one. I can learn from my mistakes. I can make mistakes even. I can make mistakes and learn from them.
How about this? I bring value to the table.
Oof. It's okay to forget and remind yourself.
It is.
Try this one. I bring my unique experiences and voice to the table.
This is my favorite. I may not know all the answers, but I am smart enough to figure them out. Because that is going to be that mindset and that attitude goes, it doesn't matter where I'm at now. It just knows that I am capable enough to ask the right people, to Google enough to figure this thing out, and I will accomplish what I need to because I'm smart enough and I can put those resources together.
Or I have so much further to go on my journey. I will continue to make progress, recognizing that you don't have to be everything and all perfect right now. There is a journey. I'm making progress. I will make progress. I will continue this journey.
And another one could be, I am not going to let other people determine my value or my worth. I'm going to let my work speak for itself. Right? So letting your work and your value, it's just going to be out there. It's going to be undeniable. And so we don't need to rely on that external validation.
Yeah. And simply also just feeling, I deserve to be at this table. I deserve to be in this room. I deserve to be on this earth. I wake up and get out of bed because I deserve to be alive. Because you are alive, therefore, by just existing, you deserve it. I know it's a strange mental shift for a lot, but you deserve it.
And this is a script change that we need in order to combat and overcome imposter syndrome. And it doesn't mean that we won't still experience it. It just means that when those thoughts come, we go, wait a minute, let me shift that script really quick and take this new angle at the same, feeling or approach to the situation.
Someone commented a beautiful question about what happens when other people around us are reinforcing the bad script that exists or those terrible thoughts. I love the question because in order for you to do that, you have to first understand the very reason why you have this script is because you've allowed external sources to write it in the first place. And when I say allowed, I mean you've been indoctrinated into the ideologies that you have just by being born into a family who happens to negatively reinforce the ways that you look at life or positively reinforce the negative thoughts. You might not even realize that you have been programmed by the way that your parents spoke to you, your caregivers, your high school or preschool humans who were your caregivers through life. They may have reinforced your incapabilities, your inability, like your clumsiness. Oh my gosh, you always have a hard time with homework, I can see. So as you permeate into the back understanding of why and deconstruct the origin of all your thoughts and why these negative thoughts happen, you have to, and you're in the process of rewriting that script, you also have to be aware of who in your life is continually reinforcing those negative thoughts and behaviors. And you have to be willing to, with grace, say, hey, every time I bring up this topic, you continue to reinforce that is something that's going to happen. And I want to actually learn to believe in myself. And I feel like you're helping me not believe in myself. Can we rewrite that script together? Can you stop making me think that I'm always going to fall or that my kids are going to fall every time they want to climb a jungle gym? Every time you say, be careful, be careful. You're instilling doubt in their capabilities instead of saying, hey, do you feel safe? Get on with your bad self then. So recognizing the environment that exists around you while you're trying to rewrite your own script will help you to protect the newly nurtured script and narrative that you are so boldly creating and you deserve to create. And that will, in fact, be the most influential tool in your mastering, overcoming imposter syndrome. Because that script is where the mind goes to first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Your mind controls it all so that no matter what anyone is saying around you, boom, all the thoughts be gone. Because I know what I'm capable of. I know what I can do. And I know what I can't do. And I'm still willing to try. So delete those people.
That's right. Cue our talk on boundary setting. Okay. So if you need help with that, there's a whole talk on setting boundaries with others and what that looks like. And
check out
honestly, we can't talk about boundary setting enough. So we'll probably talk about it more and more and more because it's so important. But this is another time where boundaries are important because you're like, nope, I got to protect this script because this is all I got right now. And I need to keep it safe.
It's mental self-defense. We talked about that too in the self-defense mindset. Guys, we have so many videos.
Here. It's all here. Go back and watch them. If you haven't yet subscribed, okay, I don't know what corner it's in, but
we'll just do this.
Yeah, just there. Subscribe. So the next tool that we can use when combating imposter syndrome is visualization. Wow, that was a tough one. Visualization. So visualization.
You guys. See, we're not imposters just because we have a hard time pronouncing visualization.
Visualize. I'm so proud of myself right now. Visualize success.
Yes.
Okay. I dare you to say that 5 times fast.
You don't have to say it to visualize it.
No, you don't. Luckily, you don't need to say anything actually to visualize. So visualizing success, that is we can break that down a lot, right? So part of that is, what does success look like for you? But specifically, I want you to think about the scary success, right? Not, oh, success is having a family with kids, and that might be scary for some people, right? I was going to say some people might be, but there might be this like very thing of like, oh, I just want to be happy. Great. That should be an idea of success for you too. But I'm talking about the scary ones, right? I'm talking about the big ones that like make you sweat a little when you think about them, because you go, I don't know if I can do that. That's the visualization that needs to happen, because until we can relinquish our self-doubt and all of those stories telling us that we are not that person, we will never be that person. So we have to first be able to visualize it. And when you do, I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. Number one, what is that success look like to you? And it might be something you didn't expect. And you go, oh, actually, I think that's what I'm after. I just never allowed myself to even think that was possible. So what does that success look like for you? And number two, how does it make you feel when you visualize? Does it freak you out, right? Does it empower you? Does it make you like feel like, okay, now I know my end goal? Or more likely than not, if you are experiencing imposter syndrome, it will scare the beep out of you, okay? By thinking about that, because you go, you're literally inundated with like, you're trying to visualize, and then there's like, you're not, nope, it's not gonna happen. All these thoughts come at you. So it is important to practice that visualization so that we just get more and more comfortable with that vision. And we go, nope, okay, that was scary at first, but every time you go to see that, you see a little bit more, and you see you reaching a kind of a higher level, and it comes with more ease, and you can let go of those thoughts, and you can rewrite that script. So visualizing what that looks like for you, even when it's scary.
Yeah. And one of the next tools that I think is imperative, not just to battle imposter syndrome, it's honestly just to live even in your fulfilled self life. And we will have a future video on this, but it's cultivating confidence. What does it even look like to cultivate confidence? And how can we persist beyond imposter syndrome if we aren't even feeling in ourselves, confident in who we are? And that is part of the difficulty of imposter syndrome. One could say imposter syndrome is a lack of confidence. That's not always true, but confidence does help overcome it. You can really be a very confident person and have all the inklings of imposter syndrome. So let's be very clear. This is a huge tool, and it can really push you forward with it. But you can have deep confidence and huge imposter syndrome.
And you can also have confidence in one pillar and not in another. And you go, wait a minute, why do I only have confidence over here? And then over here, I'm telling myself these other stories. So that's where we have to work on cultivating confidence in each of these individual areas that we are, when we recognize, like, why do I have that? Why do I tell myself that, oh, I can't do that, or that's not me, or I'm not this type of person. We really have to look at that and go, wait, can I work on my confidence in that area? Could I actually become something that I've told myself I'm not capable of? And how we do that, again, is probably, it is like Hart, if you would like a whole talk on cultivating confidence, because I know that there's a lot to be said there, and there's so much to go into. But I think one of the things that I really feel is important when trying to cultivate confidence is something we already talked about, but will be emphasized again, is the ability to lean into challenge. And even when we are scared and we go, nope, I don't think I can actually pull that off. We lean into it. We do it, and maybe we made mistakes, maybe we didn't. But afterwards you went, wow, I doubted myself, but then I actually did it. So then you start realizing that there is not a direct correlation between self-doubt and capability, but you have to prove that to yourself. So ultimately, confidence is proving yourself to yourself. How do you do that? By experience over and over again, and going, oh gosh, I felt this feeling before. I felt that self-doubt. I felt that messaging coming in. And guess what happened last time? Beat it, right? I did it. And this is where I go back to thinking about, oh, I've always told myself I am shy, or I could never perform in front of people or public speak. And then there I am again, performing in front of 70,000 people. And I'll go, okay, so that feeling that I always feel is not actually accurate. And I can overcome those fears. And that's how you build confidence. But if we don't have those challenges set up for ourselves, if we don't lean into them, if we run away from them, we will never build those confidence. And unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, but it's going to take some failure.
A lot of it. And failure, again, like we said, is all good. But what she's saying bridges us into the next one, which, I think I was taught very early on, is the idea of faking it till you make it. And Roberta, you wrote on there, like, sometimes I pretend to be brave and confident, and even when I'm not. Yes. Guess what? That is part of it.
That is.
Try it on. I talk about masks. You put on the mask of bravery and see if it works, and I'm like, oh my God, this mask is great. I can be brave with this mask on. Then you realize you are the mask. And you go, oh my God, I'm actually brave. And then goes the integration of who you think you are and what you can do to who you really are. So you do something despite whether you believe you can do that, and then you go. The faking it till you make it is actually how you acquire some of those skills of confidence, of bravery, of enoughness. That is like literally how we build our tool set. We didn't all know what we knew until we tried. Babies didn't know how to walk until they tried it. They faked walking a little bit, fell, boom, Now they're walking great. And now they're humans trying to sit down and be on scooters. We're constantly evolving into seeing what we're capable of and pushing back past it by faking it first. And when I say faking it, I don't mean I'm going to pretend. And there's a different issue with pretending you know what you're doing and faking it. I don't know how to discern this perfectly. Maybe, do you have something you thought about that?
Well, I was going to say this. So for imposters, what's likely is that faking it till you make it is actually just doing what you know how to do. Right?
Yeah.
So for you might go, well, all right, I'm just going to fake it till I make it. And then you go, wait, I actually know what I'm doing. That's likely what will happen when you are an imposter, because you are thinking, I can't do this. So what we're telling you is fake it, right? Even if you don't feel like you can, fake it and see what happens and go, wait a minute, I faked it. And then people started to believe me. They're believing me. They actually think that I know what I'm talking about. Maybe I do know what I'm talking about.
Because you're actually doing it, and do you know what you're talking about?
You just got to do it. And that is part of it, is faking it. And part of that comes from confidence. And let me tell you who I learned this, who's the master at faking it till he makes it, is my husband.
She called him out.
I did.
I'm not here.
I'm not here. but it's actually where I went, oh, this is essential to success, is faking it till you make it. And he goes, yeah, I don't know. But what he knows is I'm smart enough to figure it out. So let's just go. I'm going to make a hoodie. I'm going to start a clothing company. Never done clothing before, but let's figure it out. And so when you have that confidence that you've cultivated in other pillars, you can then transfer some of that confidence over and go, wait, I've done this before. I just got to apply it over here now. And part of that, just fake it. And it's okay to do that. And it's allowing yourself to fake it. By faking it, you are not an imposter, right? You're literally just saying, I'm going to give it a try. So we're using that terminology. And some people might say, well, that's the whole thing. I don't want to continue faking somebody I'm not. No, it's faking the confidence aspect, right?
Yeah.
Not faking who you actually are. It's faking actually just putting on that face and going, maybe you have to stand in a pose and you have to okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. And this is, what I'm going to put on this persona right now. And we've talked about this before, but the idea, like you said, of the mask, right? And for me, I actually loved it. I was like, great, I get to be another person in the ring.
But it was her,
so
guys.
It wasn't, even though it was Eve Torres, I got to be this persona. And I loved being a heel. I loved being a bad guy, because I'm like, oh, I get to make people hate me. Something I'm terrified of outside of this. And once I got to be this point, I'm like, people hate me. This is great. I actually really like people hating me. And then I went, oh, actually, I can apply this to other areas of my life. And I faked it, but now I realize I did it. And now here I am.
And what I wanted to discern when I was trying to explain my perception of fake versus pretend is faking the ability to do something that you doubt yourself in. Pretending is you literally don't have the skills and you're pretending to do something. In my mind, again, this is my discernment. If you in fact don't have the skills, that's when we can go, hey, I don't actually understand this topic, educate me. Hey, that's not my pillar of strength. Help me out here. We don't want you to pretend to start doing jobs, in construction if you actually don't know how to build something. But if you do have the capabilities and just doubt your confidence to execute, that's where we want you to fake it. We don't want you to pretend you have skills you don't actually have.
Right. Or go into a profession you probably shouldn't be in, because you're,
okay.
Yeah. And then at some point you might recognize, what, I actually don't feel great about this. And this doesn't make me feel good.
Correct.
And I had to face those feelings in the entertainment world. At some point I went, it's not bringing out my best self. And, there was obviously a lot of imposter syndrome feelings there, but But then I went and I go, it's also okay to go, actually, I feel here's where my value is most important and where I can apply it in a way that works for me. So that's also okay conversation for yourself to go, you know what? This might not be for me, and that's also okay. But remember, first you have to differentiate facts from feelings.
Yes. So let's just go a little bit overview again on how we can truly overcome moment by moment. Again, this is not something that I don't want to call it a disease, because it's not a dis-ease in that it's a momentary feeling that we can overcome moment to moment. We won't eradicate it completely. There is no general vaccine or, immunization against this. There is a moment by moment, pull out the tool, overcome, boom. Next moment, pull out the tool, overcome. So what are those tools again? Separate feelings from facts. Separation.
Separate fraudulence from feeling left out.
Yep. Rewrite the script, change the narrative, change the thoughts, protect the mind, protect your mentality.
Functionalize failure. Failure is good.
Cultivate the confidence, build. Confidence is built. We can overcome things easier.
And then visualize success.
Visualize
even when it's
it.
Scary.
Yep. And then fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. So we'll have these in the notes on the YouTube page, so that you guys can come back and reflect on them and implement them into your own journaling, your own self-discovery. These are important conversations to have with yourself. And we're really grateful that you guys joined us on this conversation us, because this is a good one. For us, it was a lot of digging in, even in here, and going, where are the moments where I felt this, and where do I continue to feel this, and what are the tools that I can pull out in these moments? And that's another important thing for everyone who we connect with and who is in our lives. It would be a disservice to pretend like this doesn't affect us. It does.
Yeah.
And that's another important recognition when you go, oh,
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm not alone in feeling this. And if you aren't alone in this, if you happen to feel this as well, and you found a way to overcome this that we haven't listed here today, because we're on this journey together, I implore you to please leave a comment, both with how you overcome your own personal imposter syndrome, what you do on a daily basis to maybe satiate the need to even want to battle it, and let us know your story. We want to interact with you guys. We do read as many comments as possible here and on our Instagram page. So join us there on Instagram at Women Empowered GJJ and join in the conversation. And that being said, we have a little giveaway today.
We do. I'm going to go check on who the winner is going to be.
I'm going to talk about what you're winning. Today, we offer Gracie Jiu-Jitsu face mask. We're also offering the Women Empowered Handbook that is filled with our program insights from the mental, psychological, and emotional journey through healing through our Women Empowered program of Jiu-Jitsu. This is one of our favorite compilations of everything that we will talk a lot about on these Women Empowered Lives more in depthly. This is the succinct version that you can keep with you. Again, it talks about psychology, our tools, our safety strategies, a word on weapons, boundaries. We talk a lot about boundaries and a lot of those concerns. We're also offering you this Women Empowered pink belt keychain. You do not have to be a pink belt yet to rock it. Supporting the program and supporting the journey is doing that at any stage. And last but not least is our brand new, we didn't take it out of the plastic. Yeah, it is fire. And I'm taking it out, which means it might become mine.
Yeah, I actually picked your size out for that reason. I already have one.
Look this is our new rash guard.
And it comes, there's a whole set that you can purchase as well. We're giving away the rash guard today, but there's spats with it, there's shorts. It's the lions, the lion collection. You see those lions there? I'm a Leo, so I'm like all about the lions.
She loves it. I love it. And it's beautiful, form-fitting, and allows you to train while the sweat gets moved off.
That's not you.
That's not me.
Hold on.
So this compilation of stuff is going to be given away today. How do you win? We're going to start offering weekly winners for this month, and you win by subscribing to our YouTube page, following our Instagram page, and was there another way to win?
Subscribing, sharing.
Sharing.
So we're going to pick somebody from one of our followers, from the those who shared. Today, the winner is on Instagram, unicorn.jujitsu. So Wadi Guerrera Contrell.
Yeah, congratulations.
Awesome.
And we'll try to contact you and make sure that we get in touch with you.
Yeah, so we will message Wadi and get her information. We'll send this all over to you. So thank you guys for...
Thank you. And there was one quick question that says, how do I get this book? If you haven't seen it before, it is a very special handbook. A lot of hours and diligence and the beautiful writing of Eve in this is been compiled. This is available on graceuniversity.com by joining our Women Empowered program. You get it full free.
As a PDF. Yes,
Yep.
it's a downloadable PDF. We are actually working on being able to sell these books by themselves. They come in the DVD set. So when you purchase the Women Empowered DVD set, this comes in with some other kind of training materials. So it's part of that. We are working on getting these developed individually so that we can.
But if you want to save a treat and just download the PDF, it can stay on your phone all the time. If you're an iPad person, digital devices, it's there for you.
Yeah. So once you create a free account on graceuniversity.com, under My Files, it will be there.
Cool.
And you can just download it.
And if you have any other questions about that, please leave them in the comments. We will reference it. We have another video coming again next Wednesday, Women Empowered Live.
We are always open to ideas about topics. So if there's anything that you guys would love us to cover, that you feel like we have not covered in the past or that we can go deeper into, always leave those in the comments and share with us. And we love going deep on these. Like it's fun for us to dive deeper into these topics that, again, we are not necessarily experts at. We have experiences with, and we want to share those experiences with all of you.
Yes. So thank you guys so much again for coming this week. We are extremely grateful for your presence, your ears, your hearts, and your minds. Thank you again for coming, and we hope to see you next week.
Have a great week.
Bye.